Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, or welcome back to another round of Bases Picks. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. Now, there is way too many cards on this weekend. It's going to be kind of hard to keep up. There's a lot of predictions to go through. So this is actually going to be a two-part video, with the first part of the video taking place and basically just covering all of the UK or Europe centric cards, and then the second part of the video will be the one that deals with the US and Puerto Rico cards that are taking place sort of Saturday night, Sunday morning. So with that being said, without no further ado, let's get into it. Let's get into the UK portion. Okay, so the first card I'm going to run through very quickly, and I'm literally just going to do the main event of this one, is the GBM Sports card taking place in Sheffield, which is being headlined by Danny Quartermain and Jack Bateson. It's an interesting fight. It's a fight for two trinket European titles, so not the official EBU ones. It's the IBF European and the WBO European straps. For whatever they're worth, all they're gonna mean is a guaranteed top 15 ranking within those sanctioning bodies. I'm trying to Quartermain is, if I can remember correctly, Danny Quartermain is a super featherweight, I think he is. So 130 division. Look, very much a domestic level fighter, but he's 12-0, 4 KOs, so not necessarily a big puncher. The opponent, Bateman, Bateman is 20-1. No, sorry, not Bateman, Bateson. Jack Bateson, 20-1, 6 KOs, but has been KO'd in the one defeat that he has had. I don't see this fight going the distance. I mean, I don't see it ending early, sorry, going inside the distance. I do see it going the distance. I think just due to overall momentum, I do think that Quartermain's got a little bit more momentum in his tank. I think Bateson, good, tough, is going to put up a very, hard night's work. It's going to be a fun main event for the small hall crowd there on the GBM Sports card. Obviously, it can be watched on the zone. I'm going to go with Quartermain to win, and I'm going to go via, I think it's going to be a unanimous decision, but it will be a very, very competitive fight. Okay, also, there's another card that's taking place at Brentwood Leisure Centre tomorrow, and that is being headlined, I think, by Konstantin Ursu against Lewis Booth, and I think Ben Crocker and Stelios Papadopoulos. Is that how you say it? Papadopoulos. I think that's on the undercard. Now, Ursu, I've seen a little bit of recently. Pretty interesting up and comer, 11-0. He is from Moldova, country of origin, but currently, staying in Plymouth, about 5'11", 6 foot. So, decent size. He's a super welter, so quite tall, quite lean, decent reach as well. Not a lot of KOs on the record. We're talking 4 KOs out of the 11 wins. So he goes the distance more often than not. But that being said, he hasn't necessarily been in a bunch of long distance fights. His last fight was a 6-rounder, and this one's a 12. He's jumping, he's skipping, he's going up 3 different levels in this one. And I guess that is the level of competence and, belief that they have in him. Now, in 3 of his last 4 fights is where the bulk of his stoppages actually came from. So that maybe means that he's now properly developing into that pro style, maturating that power, and you could see a bit more coming from him in the future. You got Lewis Booth, who is another undefeated guy, you know, within in around sort of the same level, 15-0, but he has no KOs on the record. And he again is someone who's also jumping from a 6-rounder in his very last fight up to a 12-rounder hit. So there is potentials that could be where a stoppage may occur for either guy, just due to not being able to go the distance correctly, not managing stamina reserves, etc. But with this one, I think that Ursu has a little bit more of a I think he's got a little bit more of a ceiling, if I'm honest. And I think the fact that he has, you know, had that little bit of stopping power in the last couple of fights means that he probably will be a bit more aggressive and a bit more willing to let his hands go to try and get that stoppage. So I do think that Booth will get overwhelmed eventually. It'll be tough, but just his natural lack of punch power is just not going to deter Ursu away from him. And ultimately, I do think that would be a situation where he does end up probably getting stopped around the 9th round, 9th or 10th, when, you know, the gas tank and the energy reserves start to dip and he gets into waters he's never been in. Ben Crocker against Stelios Papadopoulos. I don't really know too much about either of these. All I know is that Crocker is undefeated, 13-0. I think Stelios is like 15-1, 15-1 and something. I'm going on vibes. I'm gonna say Crocker wins. I'm gonna go via points decision. From what I remember, for the last time I saw him fight, not a lot of punches. They're not that big of a puncher. So yeah, I'm going to leave that one there. That's the prediction on that. Okay, so just before we get to Magnificent 7, there is a card taking place, and I believe it's actually taking place in Bulgaria, live on the Zone, and it is being headlined by Kubrat Pulev and Manuel Charr for the WBA regular heavyweight title, the title that Charr was owed a chance to win back, because I think he never lost that particular belt in the ring. A lot of foolishness went on behind that, but ultimately we get that, and the fight's in Bulgaria. I definitely will be looking to try and tune into that main event, if for nothing else. On the undercard of that, before I get to it, there's actually a fight with Gleb Bakshi, who is one of the sort of new Bulgarian prospect. Well, he's not a Bulgarian prospect, but he's been sort of campaigning in and around that region. He's from Ukraine. He's literally just turned over recently. He's a middleweight. He's 4-0 with 2 KOs, and they're kind of throwing him into the deep end thus far. His first 2 fights were KOs, and then since then he's kind of gone the distance. So he went from his first 2 8-rounders, stopping his opponents in the first round. In the third and the fourth, basically went the distance with them as the level went up ever so slightly. Now his level's going up again. He's taking on Juan Manuel Taboada, who is 21-1. Is Argentinian. So, they are extremely tough to the head, very hard to sort of break them down. If you do manage to get them hurt, it's normally to the body, but they're going to have gas tanks, they're going to, be energized. Now, the reason I kind of bring this one up is I've seen Bakshi fight before. As an amateur, he was very accomplished. Obviously, Ukrainians mostly are. He's got a decent, good style. It looks like he's working his way into the pro style quite well. But I do think the jump up, it's not even so much a huge jump up in level, but I guess just that natural that they may be taking steps a little bit too quickly. So as much as he probably is supposed to win this fight, hence why they've booked it and they're quite happy, I don't know. 22 fights experience, only losing 1 and having a draw. To me, it kind of screams a little bit of it's touch and go. So I'm actually against better judgment going for the upset on this one. I do think Taboada is actually going is going to go and get the upset. I don't know how. I don't know if it will be like a points thing. I don't know if it might be like a knockout from nowhere. but something is just telling me about the upset. So that's kind of where I'm going with that. In terms of Kubrat Pulev and Manuel Charr, if we're going on the level of both people, Manuel Charr is definitely levels below Kubrat Pulev. Kubrat Pulev is no great shakes. He's only ever been at the European level as a, as a fighter in his heyday, but he was a very high level European. Like, he was probably the the elite level of the European level fighters. It's only when he stepped up to that that world elite level is where he came a cropper. Apart from the the Derek Chisora rematch fight, where I do think he was actually unfairly done by on the scorecards. But with that being said, he's taken on Manuel Charr for a chance to finally win a version of a world title, a lesser version, a secondary version, a version that no one really takes serious, but it's an opportunity to have one. Neither guy has been the most active as of late, but Kubrat Pulev has fought inside the last, I think it's inside the last 12 to 14 months. I think he's fought once in that time. I'm not 100% sure, I'd have to double check. But one thing about Kubrat Pulev, and I've always said this, if he's got nothing else, he has got one of the best jabs in the heavyweight division. Just from a technical standpoint, the way he's able to generate good levels of power on it. He hasn't got a strong backhand, so he can never really leverage off of that jab to cause knockouts with the backhand, uppercuts, right hooks, etc. But that jab has left many a fighter unsettled in the past. And someone of Manuel Charr's limited levels, while he's not a terrible fighter, he's not on the level of Kubrat Pulev, like stylistically, from an amateur standpoint and from a professional standpoint. I think that jab is just going to have him unsettled all night. He's going to be walking onto it. He's going to be eating that jab, from round 1 until round 12. I do think it will go the distance because, as I said, Pulev doesn't really have stopping power. It's he's never really been the guy that sets up those heavy shots, and so because of that, I do think it will go the distance. But I do think Kubrat Pulev controls this, and even if it was semi-contentious, it's in Bulgaria, it's in his neck of the woods. There's no way that you're getting consideration over him unless you put him down like 3-4 times. So for all of those reasons, I do pick Kubrat Pulev to win this fight fairly comfortably. I pick him to win, fairly comfortably by unanimous decision. And now that I think about it, he's actually had 2 fights in the last 12 months, so he's pretty fresh. I know he fought Andrei Wojcik, and I know he faced that Ihor Shevardutski, the one that they called Hulk, the one that Martin Bakoli knocked out on that Polish show that Boxer put on Sky. So when they had Alan Babic taking on Lukas Rozansky for that Bridgerweight title. So he's been more active than Manuel Charr recently, and I think that's going to show to the people. So that's my prediction. Kubrat Pulev on points, unanimous decision, quite comfortable victory. Okay, so finally we get to the Magnificent 7 card that's taking place at the OVO Arena in Wembley tomorrow. I was supposed to be there initially, but accreditations, other things happened, didn't get in, so didn't go. To be fair, I kind of preferred to stay home. I had some other things I would have rather have been doing than them taking a 2-hour journey to Wembley and an hour journey back home afterwards. That being said, I'm not going through the entire card. Yes, there are some good fights on here. Most of them will be for a title of some sort, so a trinket title, a British, etc. I'm only focusing on 3 fights. Before I talk about those, I just want to big up Alois Jr. Him and Lewis Oakford, I'm very intrigued to see. I'm not giving any prediction on that one in this video. Neither Sean Noakes, Pierce O'Leary, Barney Royston Smith, etc. I'm starting with Lawrence Okoli and Hussein Mohammed. Now, the only reason I'm starting with this fight, I think this is just supposed to be a, not a run out, but just like a welcome to the heavyweight division, give you someone that's going to give you some rounds type of fight for Lawrence Okolie. But a lot of people were saying, oh, Lawrence was, really struggling to make that cruiserweight limit, and it was hard to sort of keep the weight off, and he was draining a lot of weight. Well, I don't know what weight he was coming in from, even to the point where they said he was finding it hard to make Bridger weight. Well, now we know why, because he got on the scales earlier on today, and my man was weighing just over 260 pounds. Bear in mind, this is the guy that used to campaign at the 200-pound division. He's 6'6", so he is a big guy who can obviously hold that frame, but I worry that's way too much weight, way too soon. Yeah, you've probably been training with it in lower intensity areas, but that is just an unseemly amount of weight to pack on in the space of, well, from his last fight, we're talking about, what, 5 months, 6 months? You were 220 and now you're 260. Like, that's not due to natural bulking. Like, that's what they used to call it in the gym circuits. That's dirty bulking. That's just eating bare food, bare calories, good, bad, or indifferent, just to try and get big and get stronger. But that was normally with a lot of weightlifting. Now, I think in time, within say the next year and a half, he will actually be able to carry that weight comfortably, like properly comfortably, and be a fully fledged heavyweight, with that size on him. But for right now, I do think that's a bit too much, a bit too soon. So what that tells me is that he is banking on getting through this fight early. And I've not seen the Muhammad guy, I've not seen him, Hussein Muhammad. So, but I do know that the only person he lost to was Zan Kosobutsky, who was a very top level operator, who had that very weird fight with F.A. Jagbar. But I expect Lawrence's style and quality to show, even if there is a lack of conditioning. I think he's not looking to go rounds particularly. He might maybe try to just go 1 or 2 early, just to see how he feels with the weight, with the smaller gloves and everything. But I do think he's looking to cause damage from early and keep that damage going until the time where this fight stops. I predict that Lawrence does get a knockout here, and I predict that he gets that knockout possibly about between rounds 5 and 7. Obviously, I'm not going to just write off this Hussein Muhammad and assume he can't take a punch, or he's not, doesn't have any qualities at all. But I do think Lawrence is going to be steps and leagues above him, but that weight is concerning to me. I'm not saying that you can't be that after a while, but yeah, that's to jump straight from 200 to basically 260, or to be in and around that, is a bit crazy. That doesn't really sound like you've been living the life the way you should be. But I guess I'll wait and see. I'll be proven right, or I'll be proven wrong Saturday. Now, from there, we've got actually, let me quickly, Sam Noakes, Ryan Walsh, very quick. I think this is going to be a fun fight. I think the Ryan Walsh is going to give Sam Noakes hell for the first 2 to 3, maybe 4 rounds of the fight. But I do think Sam Noakes is going to obviously be in the fight in those rounds as well. And being the fact that he punches much harder than Ryan Walsh, I think he's just going to basically eventually manage to take over, a bit like the Amor Williams and Hamza Shiraz fight. It will be sticky for him in the first part, but he'll start to systematically get those shots, build those shots off, and eventually I do think he I don't know if he'll be able to take Walsh out, because I know he's never been stopped before, but he may very well keep him holstered and keep him in his pocket for the remainder of the fight. So I do see Sam Noakes winning. I'm gonna go conservatively on a points decision, a unanimous points decision, but in a fight where he's had to ask some questions of himself early. Now, Solomon Dacus and David Adelaide. This fight, I think what I'm about to say is going to shock a lot of people, especially there will be some people watching who I'm sure will not believe what I'm about to say. This fight is a fight I actually don't think is going to be that enjoyable to watch. But stylistically, you look at this fight, one person is obviously the bigger puncher of the two, but one person is the better technician, the better boxer, maybe has, I reckon, maybe a better IQ in general, but they never really seem like they're up for the fight. So if David can get Solomon on the back foot, like basically having to box on the back foot or moving around the ring, I think David can build up a head of steam, start working those body shots, maybe throw a couple of overhands that Solomon just doesn't see, can't really get to grips with, and possibly, you know, take him out in those middle to late rounds. But as of recent, I think Solomon Dacus has got a bit more of a different energy about him. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Yes, he still is very boring to watch, but he hasn't been as boring, and it's almost like he's been picking shots a little bit better than he was previously. That being said, if you look at both of the guys stylistically, David is more of a boxer puncher. He looks to set up those big shots. He looks for the openings to set those up, whereas Solomon doesn't really give you openings to just land shots unless you can just pressure him and throw him off his game. David isn't really a pressure fighter like that. And because of that, stylistically, Solomon Dacus has the style to take on and beat David. Plus, he's got the more accomplishments within the amateurs, and he's, I guess, been fighting in and around this English fringe British level for, you know, longer. The one time that, you know, David had that level, it was with Fabio Wardley, and he didn't get it done, and has subsequently been out of the ring almost 15 months since, whereas at least Solomon has fought, I think, 2 or 3 times in that same space of time. So as much as everything would suggest that this is set up for David to win, and realistically he needs to salvage his career at this point, especially at domestic level, I can see Dacus winning this fight. So I'm predicting Solomon Dacus to win this fight, and I'm predicting him to win, I think, possibly a late stoppage, maybe like round 10, round 11, if not like a unanimous points decision. But maybe just David gets a little bit tired, he's been throwing a lot, you know, starts huffing and puffing, can't really get the breath, and then maybe just gets caught with something he doesn't really see coming. Not the biggest of shots, but he's just exhausted, and ultimately kind of gets stopped. So it's one of the craziest takes that I've made in a while, but stylistically, Solomon does have the style to beat him, and I think in this fight he's gonna have to produce the fight of his life to basically keep his career going as well, and I think that is going to be the case. So I am going with Solomon Dacus to win this fight, either very late stoppage or ref stoppage, or via unanimous decision. Okay, moving to the main event. Finally, we've got Brad Pauls versus Denzel Bentley. This is going to be a very good fight. Both guys are more of the boxer puncher variety, whereas Denzel is more of the hangback counter puncher, almost the sort of the pure boxer puncher hybrid. Brad Pauls is more of the ambush, like boxer puncher / pressure boxer puncher hybrid, although neither guy is, you know, equipped, I would say, to, you know, toggle between those styles like seamlessly. You can kind of tell when one person's being standoffish or one person's trying something different to what's normal. But I do think that grit and determination, I think Brad Pauls has probably got the more grit and determination. I think he wants it more, just in the sense that this is like his world title moment, and this is a final eliminator for the WBO middleweight championships, plus the vacant European, the EBU European title is on the line as well. It's the one belt that Denzel Bentley's been after for a little while now, so that could give him some renewed vigor. But of the two, I think technically, I think Denzel is more unorthodox of the two. I think Brad Pauls is the more technical, or the more like correct, fundamentally technical in terms of what the British system teaches. But Denzel has got the frame, the wiry frame to offset that. He's he punches from angles you wouldn't really expect him to connect with, but somehow they still connect. Very wiry frame, very that wiry skinny man power. He can hit you from one angle and you can't, and his reach is now like 3 or 4 inches in front of yours, so you can't even counter. He's able to get a bit on the back foot. Him and Brad Pauls, they're similar size, but the reach and the wingspans are different. Denzel's style, just the way he approaches things, I think is just going to lead to Pauls lunging in to something and getting caught in those counters, just as what Denzel has been practicing over the last couple of especially the last couple of fights where we've seen it. Maybe they haven't been of the level of a Brad Pauls, but you can see the blueprint there of what he's been doing recently. He hasn't been stepping to opponents, he's been letting them step to him, using their aggression against them and taking them out. So with that being said, I do think it's going to be a very strong and competitive fight early on, and I'm looking forward to watching it. No bias in this one at all. But I do think Brad Pauls is going to be having the better of the exchanges early, but I think he's going to be getting caught with enough stuff that kind of keeps him from getting too froggy. But in those middle to late rounds is where I think Denzel is going to be able to find the keys to unlock certain parts of Brad Pauls' defense, and I think he's going to start getting some shots through the front door, through the side window, basically through the well, I don't want to say the back door, but yeah, like the shutters, maybe even one over the top through the chimney. I can just see situations where the shots start raining from areas that Pauls can't see, and because of that and just being tired, he ends up getting caught clean with something, getting put down, getting up, and then maybe sort of Denzel rushing for the finish with a referee jumping in. I don't know who the ref is, but if it's a Howard Foster, then I'm definitely expecting this to end on a stoppage, with the referee jumping in to save somebody. So my prediction is that Denzel Bentley is going to win this fight. I think he has to. I think he, of the two, cannot afford a loss at this point. I think Brad Pauls can sort of handle that loss a bit better than Denzel can, just in terms of career trajectory. But I do think that Denzel is going, especially in his home city, is going to not let things falter. And yeah, I do think he gets a stoppage victory here, probably between rounds 8 and 11. So somewhere in and amongst that region. But yeah, look, that's the first half of these videos down. Thank you very much for watching. I will catch you on the second ones shortly, but just until then, first half, Basis Picks locked.